Hello, everyone, and welcome to Martin Business Solution, our Financial Friday. So, quite naturally, today is Friday, but depending on what day of the week you're watching the replay, this was done on a Friday. So, welcome. We are going to be discussing personal credit today. This is going to be a short, brief overview summary of what personal credit is. And I do have a giveaway for everyone that's watching live or that's watching the replay. So stick to the end so that you can get the goodie prize as well. So let's go ahead and get started right away. We are going to be discussing, like I said, personal credit, and you'll learn a little bit about how how personal credit works, what it is, and how you can use it to your advantage. And this is just awesome. So one thing before we get started, I want to put this disclaimer out there. Before you start doing anything, make sure that you check with your financial advisor and perhaps even your tax preparer before you start making any major life changes in your finances. I always put that disclaimer out there because we want to make sure that even though this class is a general overview, you want to make sure that what you do is tailor it for your situation. So I wanted to make sure that I put that out there. Make sure you consult with your tax advisor or your financial planner. And let's get started. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And I know you said, I didn't sign up for a law class. No, but you got to know this part of the law because this is the basis of everything that we do in regards to personal credit. It is an actual law that protects the consumer, which is you, that allows you to restore your credit, and it gives you the tools that you need to get that done without being harassed. So we'll kind of get into all of that in just a second. The FCRA, which is a federal law that regulates the collection of consumer credit information, the things that are on your credit report, and access to their credit reports. Who has the right to view your credit report? All right. It was passed in 1970 to address the fairness, accuracy, and privacy of the personal information contained in the files of the credit reporting agency. Now, if you've ever looked at your credit report, there's your address, your phone number, sometimes next of kin, what report you're using. There's so much information on your credit report that it's really an open book to your life. And so the Fair Credit Reporting Act was passed to protect your privacy. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, you know what? I didn't give them permission to put all of what's on that credit report. So that is, just stick around. That's what we're going to kind of talk about today. And this is what protects us as we go through this process. So if you want to look it up, it's a really long act. This is just a summary of it. It's hundreds of pages long, but this is the basics of that law. All right, so let's talk about personal credit. Let's get right into it. All right, so our personal credit is broken down into 5 components. This is what normally generates your score, what is actually on your credit report. And if you understand these 5 components of this pie, of this credit pie, you'll be on your way to having excellent credit. Now, if you have great credit already, let's say your score is a 720, that is awesome. So if your score is a 720, we're going to talk to you about how to even build and increase that. If your score is a 500, don't feel discouraged. Trust me, taking this class and learning some more things and putting some things in place, you'll be well on your way. And don't be ashamed. There's over 43 million Americans with less than a 600 credit score. So out of that 43 million people that have less than a 600 credit score, you're not alone. So don't be discouraged. All right. So the first component that we're going to discuss is payment history. As you can see here, payment history is 35% of the score. Now, that is a large chunk in the score. And so I tell people it's the most important one. it kind of, if you didn't get the others quite right, make sure absolute necessary 911, get this one right. Your payment history, meaning paying your bills on time. I mean, I just can't put it no plainer. You have to pay the bills on time. This is the most important one, and not just on time. I'm gonna go through all of them, then I'm gonna come back and give you some tips. But this is just very important. I wanted to make sure that I drive that home. The next one is 30% the amount owed. So if your credit card, for an example, if your credit card limit is 100, you got $100 credit limit on your credit card. You don't want to exceed 30% of the card. So you want to pretend, or make it a habit that the card is only worth $30 versus $100, because amount owed, anytime it goes past 30%, it takes a drop in the score if it's not paid down by the reporting date. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right. Length of credit history. Now, this is one that I want to make sure that, you know, I always tell this story, and I know if you've watched any of my classes, you're probably tired of hearing it. But hey, it was like one of those incidents where you just couldn't believe it. If you ever heard of Sears and Roebucks, when I was coming up, telling my age, Sears and Roebucks was like the store. If you had a Sears card, you were somebody important. You were such and much if you had a Sears and Roebucks card. Well, I ran into a client about 2 years ago who still had the Sears and Roebucks card. And she said, well, I can't even find a Sears anywhere. I just need to cancel this card. And I told her, no, don't do it. She told me she had that card since 1978. That is a long time to have an active credit file. Now, I'm sure there are other people that had, similar situations, but this was the person that I had met. And I told her, whatever she do not terminate that card, because longevity, the longer you have something, the more it increases your score. So that's why sometimes you hear us say, if you're going to pay something off early, make sure you've at least had it at least a year. Don't, cancel or close anything that you've had less than a year, because longevity helps your credit score. So the longer you've had it, the more points, or, it's just, so make sure that you have something. If you don't like the store anymore, just keep it. I don't know, buy somebody a pair of socks every once in a while. You don't want to close out your credit card. Now I'm gonna give some more tips a little later. I'm just trying to give the overview right now. So 10% of your score is new credit or new inquiries. And you said, well, why would they want us to get new credit? Especially if your credit is challenged, you are saying, well, how do I get new credit, and why? I'm trying to get out of debt. Why would I want new credit? All right, so let me explain this really quick. New credit shows that you're active. It shows that you're current and that you're engaging in the game of credit. Credit is, if I guess one of the ways I could put it, if you don't use it, you lose it. You have to use it, keep it active. They don't just give credit points and credit score increases to people who don't use credit. They assume, or their algorithm or their system, because it's their system, the credit system, says that if you don't use it, you don't need it. So, we're going to save our points for someone who uses it. So now, here's the catch-22 to that. New credit, you shouldn't be having new credit every month. This should show a healthy mix of, maybe you were pricing insurance, you needed a new car because the one you've had it like 6 years. And so, it's on its last leg. And so you had to apply for credit for a new vehicle, things of that nature, things that are going to improve the quality of life. It's been maybe 15 months since you applied for anything new, and you've been working on your credit and improving your credit. So now you want to see if you can get a better interest rate. So things like that is what consists of new credit and new inquiries. Just showing some activity, showing that you're engaged in credit and that you're utilizing it. And then the last 10% is type of credits used. Sometimes people say, you know what, I don't really have a whole lot of bills on my credit report. I have 15 credit cards. That's all I have on my credit report. Well, things like that is not going to increase your score. Matter of fact, it'll bring it down. So you have to have a healthy mix of credit. It could be a mortgage, some credit card, a car loan, maybe an installment loan, just different things that mix up and make up the credit score. You don't want every line item on your credit report to be the same thing or the same type of credit. So you want a mix of credit. And the better the mix, the better the score. So that's just a quick overview. And like I said, I'm gonna go back really quick and give some tips before we get to the next slide. Let's see. Well, let's go to the next slide. I'll come back. All right, so let's just go over some credit building notes. Like I said, this is a brief summary class for our Financial Friday. If you would like a more detailed, more in-depth class, stay tuned and I'll tell you how to have access to that towards the end. All right, personal credit. All right, so personal social security number is for credit building. And the reason why I say that, there are a lot of things out there that say, hey, if you buy this, we'll boost your score. Be careful. Make sure that everything that you purchase or if you get involved in, I'm not speaking against it because some of those things do have their place. It's almost like, hey, you're getting a bonus for doing X, Y, Z. And who doesn't like bonuses? So just make sure that you read the fine print, but make sure that everything that you get involved in to build your credit is tied to your social security number. Your social security number is what is used to monitor and to report to your credit. There's nothing else that could do that. Everything is tied to your social. Your credit limit is based on your debt income ratio. We talked about that a little bit in the previous slide where we talked about the amount of credit owed. Let's go back to that really quick. All right, so you see where it says amount owed. I wanted to show you that makes up the next biggest part of your credit score. So like I said, if you pay the bills on time, that's like if you get that right, then boom, you're good. The next one is if your amount owed does not exceed 30% of the max, okay? And that's for everything, but it's a good practice. So let's just say, well, you have a car and you just got it. So of course, quite naturally, if you're financing it, you don't have that paid down 30%. So you have to make sure that everything that you possibly can, that you have it paid down. So that way, the other items that are of a bigger ticket, you have something to balance it with. All right. So your debt income ratio does make up part of your credit score. You want to make sure that you have some balance there, that everything isn't maxed out, and that you do show a steady flow of payments and consistency. You want to show that. That plays a big factor in your debt income ratio, especially if someone is reviewing your credit. Sometimes they don't just look at the score. They also look at, because I've heard people say, well, I have like excellent credit and I have a 700 and I didn't get approved. Sometimes the lender or the person reviewing the credit report is not just judging it on the score. They're looking at your entire makeup of your credit report, such as your payment history, how much you have, your credit mix. They're looking at this entire pie, and they're looking to see what part are you having the most issue with. So let's just say you have a 705 credit score, but when they look at the credit report, it shows you were 30 days late on a payment, or you were you maxed out a card 3 times in the last year. So those things play a part in sometimes getting approval for certain things. So you want to make sure that those 2 items, you pay attention to those really quick. And also I want to mention, when we're talking about the credit limits, I want to talk right here for just a second, where if you paying your credit cards, let's talk about credit cards for a second, which is like, one of the hot items. Of course, there's a picture of it. So on credit card payments, I say the credit card is you have $100 credit limit, and you want to make sure that it stays below 30. Well, you go to the store and you spend $50. Okay, let's say you spend $50, and you say, you know what, I need to pay this down to $30, which would give you need to make a payment of $20. Well, the statement comes out and it says minimum payment due $10. You know how they always get you with the minimum payment? They're not telling you, hey, red flag, make sure you pay this card down by 30%. So almost ignore the minimum payment almost because you want to make sure, unless the minimum payment, is right on getting you below 30%. But let's just say they ask for a $10 minimum payment. Well, you already know you need to pay at least 20. You know that before the statement even comes out. Well, and so when you get ready to make the payment, you want to make sure a few things. So here's some notes. When you get your credit card statement at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, whenever you get it, you want to make sure that, number one, you make the minimum, that you at least pay the minimum by the due date. That's like an absolute. Like if money is tight and you just can't do anything else, make sure that you have your credit card payment minimum balance paid by the due date. I have given the suggestion of putting it on auto draft. If you can do that, at least the minimum balance on the credit card statement, you can set it up where it takes at least the minimum balance out. That way, you never miss it and you're never late. If it's late, it's their fault because you have it on auto draft. All right, so the second tip with your credit card payments is you want to call them, unless you already know, what is the reporting date. The reporting date is different from the due date in most cases. Very rare would it be the same date. The reporting date is the date that they actually take your credit history for that month from the month before, and they report it to the credit bureau. So you want to make sure that whenever you're making your payment and you're paying it down below 30, that you do this before the reporting date. So for example, the credit card minimum balance is due on the 15th, okay? The reporting date is the 10th, which means the reporting date comes before the due date. And if you're in the average person, just make sure, hey, I got to have this bill paid by the 15th. Okay, so they're going to pay it on time, and they're going to make sure that they pay it down below 30, and they do it on the 14th. Well, the credit agency has already reported for that month that the card was maxed out. Because you can use your credit card, the $100 credit card, you can spend $99.15 if you want to. Just make sure that before the reporting date that you have it paid down back to $30 or less, or 30%, whatever your credit limit is. So for example, let me kind of slow down and go over that again. If your credit card due date is the 15th, but the reporting date is the 10th, you want to make sure that you have it paid down 30% by the 10th. So that is very, very important, because you don't ever want it to report that you maxed out the card, that your debt income ratio that we talked about was overextended. So yes, you can use the card, and you can get to your limit if you need to, because you may need it for something. Credit cards are there for emergencies, it's for purchases, and we'll talk about purchases in a little bit. So you want to make sure that you utilize it. And I'm talking a lot about credit cards because it is one of the fastest ways to improve your credit score and to build it, especially if you already have a house and a car, and you have some, those type things. You're not going to buy that every month. So the best next thing would be to utilize your credit card activity so that you can get your credit score up. And I'm going to give you some nuggets on that. But back to this payment. So you want to make sure that you pay it down 30% by the reporting date. Now, if the reporting date is after the due date, you should be good. But if it's before, you want to make sure that you're you're targeting that reporting date. And like I said, you can simply call up the creditor and ask them, hey, when is the reporting date? They have to give you that information. All right. The next thing, the next tip I'm going to give you about credit cards is the payment. And you can do this with any of your bills, but particularly with credit cards, this does improve your score. And I give people all the time, well, why? Because it does. All right, so we know our credit card limit is $100, and we know that we got to keep it below 30 by the time that it gets ready to report, and it reports on the 10th. Even though the due date is the 15th, we know that we need to get this card paid down by 30% before the 10th of the month. Now, here is the next tip that I'm going to give you. Let's say you're going to pay $50 on it. Because you used it and you got to get it down below 30. And so you got all that. And the number that you need to pay to get it down below the 30% is $50. Okay. Even though the minimum balance says $10, we're going to pay $50. Now, here's your next tip. When you get ready to make your payments, if you're early enough, you can do this. Instead of paying $50 on the 10th, let's do this. You would do $25 on the 5th and $25 on the 9th. That's at least, there's 2 tips in there. At least one day before the reporting date, that improves your score. And splitting the payments in half. And a lot of times people say, well, why would I do that? I could just send the whole 50. Trust me on this. You want to split it. So you would do $25, just any particular day. On the 3rd, you pay $25, and then on the 9th, you pay another $25. Now, anything beyond that, you pay it whenever. But you want to make sure that you have it paid down by 30% before the reporting date, and that it is at least $1 more than the minimum balance, and you want to split the payment. All right. Now, a lot of times people say, well, I have 10 credit cards. How in the world I'm going to do that for all of these cards? Well, that's where you go old school. My suggestion would be get a piece of paper, do a spreadsheet, set it up on your phone, whatever you're going to be consistent with. If you're a technology person, put it in your phone. If you're old school pen and paper like me, make a spreadsheet. And you want to have the name of the credit card, when it's due, when it reports, and how you're going to split your payments up. It's sort of something like budgeting, that word. This is not a budgeting class, but you follow what I'm saying. You got to plan it out. You're going to be strategic about it. All right. So our next credit item, I won't finish much time on the other items. I just really wanted to drive that point home about the credit card. And so, yeah. All right. So must use it to maintain it. We talked about that in the previous slide, where if you don't use it, you lose it. That was the one that was giving us the 10%, the yellow one, the new inquiries. And so that is where this tip comes from. Just make sure that you use your credit card every once in a while if you're not big on it. So this is how you can maintain it. If you go to the grocery store and you purchase $100 worth of groceries, okay? Instead of using your debit card that's tied to your checking account that give you no credit points, don't use your debit card. Use your credit card. Pay for the groceries with your credit card, okay? At the end of the day or the end of the week, depending on how you want to do it, you allocate the money that you were going to pay for the groceries, and you use that to pay your credit card statement. Same amount of money came out, but the method of payment was different. Some people say, well, I'm trying to get out of debt, but you're still buying groceries, you're still paying light bills, you're still putting gas in your car, you're still going to the dentist. All the things that you pay for with your debit card, now start paying for it with your credit card. This is if you're trying to improve your credit score and to restore it and give it some life. If your credit score has been at 720 for the last 2 years and you can't seem to get past that, well, you have set it and forget it, and it's not going to move. It's going to start decreasing, matter of fact. So you got to utilize those credit cards. So what you would do is Once again, I'll go over that tip really quick. You would go to the grocery store or put gas in your car, whatever the amount is, you can pay it right then. Because a lot of us have everything on our phone. You have the bank on your phone, and you have where you can automatically do the bill pay and send the payment. So if you spend $80 at the grocery store, swipe your credit card. You can go right onto your app and you can say make a payment of $70. Because remember, you don't want it to be dollar for dollar, because then you're not getting any credit points. And you don't want it to be paid out to zero before the reporting date. So make sure, that's another tip. Do not pay the card down to zero. I mean, come on, leave $10 on it. If you're not going to use the credit, they're not going to give you any points. So yes, the little interest that you would be charged on $10 is a little interest, but you said you wanted to improve your credit score or to restore it. So this is what it takes. You have to leave something on it so that it knows that the card is not closed or not being used or it's just laying doormat. So make sure that whatever you're going to spend cash or debit card for, you use your credit card, but make the payment. Be responsible. Don't just max the card out and use the money that's tied to the debit card in the checking account. Take that money and allocate it to your credit card bill. All right. All right, so the owner is liable to original creditors. Our next tip. So if you use the credit card and don't pay it, you're liable for that. If you buy the card, it's your responsibility to pay for it. Now, the reason why I have this on here that the owners are liable to the original creditors, because I'm talking a little bit about the debt collection. I'm going to pivot a little bit. So let's just say your credit is a little challenged and you want to improve it or build it or use it. You don't even have any credit. You want to get in the game of credit. You want to make sure that when you get collection letters, if it is not the original creditor, you are not obligated to pay it. You are obligated to pay the original creditor. So for example, I loan you $10, you don't pay me back. I can't go to your aunt and tell your aunt that she owes me $10. You have to pay me and not your aunt. And so the reason why I say that is because third-party debt collectors will call you and say, hey, you owe us $10. No, I don't owe you $10. I borrowed the money from ABC, not from you. And so that's where we get into the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Your information was sold without your consent. So that law comes into play and to protect you. And so what you want to make sure is that you're doing all of your dealing with the original creditors when you want to improve your credit score or to restore your credit. So a lot of times people say, well, I paid all these collections and my credit score is still the same. Well, chances are those payments weren't even reported to the original credit that is on your credit report. So now your credit report still shows that you didn't pay it, because you paid some third party that you did not even have an agreement with, which means they're not obligated to report it to your credit because you didn't owe them. So what happens is the creditors will call, the debt collectors will call, and they'll say, hey, you owe us $10. Can you verify your information? No, why am I going to verify my information? If I walk into your store and I fill out your application, you have my name, my address, my social, you have my phone number, you have everything in the file. Get the information out the file. And then they said, well, we have to verify that it's you. Well, no, well, send it to me in writing. Well, what's the address? If I owe you, you know where I live, and so you can disconnect the call. Third party, the way that those collection agencies or collection places work, they call you on the phone, get you all riled up, but they get you to agree to their terms, which now means you have entered into an agreement with a new company, into a new agreement. When they say, well, can you pay $10 a month every month on the 5th? And you say, yes, I could pay $10. Now you have entered into a legal binding agreement with that collection agency. That's why I said this call is being recorded. it's being recorded so that they can have record of you entering into a contract with them. So it's always best when you get in a pickle or things get challenging or you have a hardship that you reach out to the original creditor, make the agreement and arrangement with them. We talk a little bit about that in our personal credit workshop on how to do that and the tools. We give you the tools and everything that you need to do that with. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there. All right, and the last note on this slide, regulated by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is the one that we read at the very beginning. Wanted to make sure that you all know that there are laws to protect you. So I'm just going to talk about the elephant in the room. My company, Martin Business Solution, we do offer credit restoration services. And I know a lot of times people, when they come in contact with me and I present to them the option of restoring their credit or building credit, if you have good credit, you want to build it some more. They say, well, I've tried some agency XYZ credit repair and they ripped me off. Well, we're not a credit repair company, but we are a credit education. We do offer credit education. And so it's a big difference between credit education and credit repair. Credit education, we're going to walk you through kind of like a hand holding, take you step by step and give you the tools and resources and educate you along the way so that when you're done with our program, you're not just, it's not a Band-Aid. We're going to pull that Band-Aid off and we're going to go through this step by step. We're going to operate according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And we're going to make sure that you have an understanding of everything that you're doing so that when you're done, not only is your credit score improved, your credit mix and everything has improved, but you have an education and an understanding to maintain your good credit. And so, no, we don't have any magic portions or overnight success stories, but we do have results that will show you how and give you an understanding. Credit is a game. That's just what it is. It's like a Monopoly game. You got that rules. I mean, you roll in the dice when you enter into the credit world, but if you can get an understanding of it, now you can have a strategic plan to develop it and to get the results that you desire. All right. So one thing that I want to mention, I talk about, now this slide actually is in my business credit class, but after, some actual presentations on the business credit side, I said, you know what, this needs to be in the personal credit slide as well, because it does make a difference. On your credit report, you want to review it and you want to make sure that your name is correct, that your numbers are correct. When I say numbers, like the amount that you owe on a particular item, the date that it opened, that's so very important. Even if your credit is like a 500, you want to do this because just doing this part will help your credit profile. You want to make sure that, like I said, that any due dates or past due dates, you want to make sure all those numbers are accurate. You want to make sure that your address is correct. And you also want to make sure that your account or your account. So if you can synchronize all these things, this is going to be for a successful credit report. All right. So my last item, financial stewardship. I always talk about this because a lot of times when people improve their credit, their scores go up. They start getting offers in the mail for credit cards or for loans. All these different things, start opening up. And you want to make sure that you have some component of financial stewardship, which means that you're going to be wise and responsible. That's why at the very beginning I said to please consult your tax professional or your financial planner, your tax advisor. Sometimes that may be the person at your bank, but I suggest that you get someone outside of the same bank that you bank at. Long story short, just get you a financial planner. So financial stewardship also consists of making sure that you have a strategic plan, that you sit down and you face the facts, you face the reality, you look at it and you say, you know what? These are the things that are not good. These are the things that are good. And these are the things I'm going to keep. These are the things I'm going to change. You got to come up with a plan. You don't just start paying off stuff or just making all these changes without actually having a plan. And another thing that I want to mention about financial stewardship is you want to ask questions. You want to find out. You want to make sure that you're contacting your creditors. You want to make sure that everything that you getting ready to do, that it works. And so there are so many different things we can talk about on financial stewardship, not just about making sure that we're responsible with our money or asking the question. You want to start building things that will leave a legacy for your family. In your financial stewardship, do you have a will? Do you have a trust? Do you have a power of attorney if something should happen and you're not in a state where you can make financial decisions? You want to put these things in place. And those are some services that we have as well to assist you with. But financial stewardship is not just your credit cards or boosting your credit score. You want to make sure that all of your things in your finances, you have life insurance, all those things make up good financial stewardship. And like I said, any item that we discussed that you need more about, I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a second. So Q&A, do we have any questions from those of you that are on with us live? This will be a time of Q&A. And for those of you who are watching the replay, I'm going to also tell you how you can get your questions answered as well. So I'll take one or two questions so that we can wrap the class up.
Hi, Candy. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask this question. I recently had a friend of mine who got divorced, and she had not established her credit because she was married, and her husband, basically had most of the things in his name. How would she begin at this state in her life as an older woman to start her credit?
That is an excellent question. Excellent, excellent. Life changes do make an effect on your credit report. So, the very first thing that I would advise her to do is to get a copy of her credit report. Um, we have to start there. A lot of times people don't even know that the credit report even exists. So, you want to get a copy of all three plus the other two. So a lot of people say, well, what are the other two? You know, reach out to us and we'll make sure that you get the list of all of them. So the very first thing I would advise her to do is to get her credit report. Look and see what is on it that is actually belonging to just her. Any joint account, she needs to work on either having it removed or having just her portion of it reported to her. Because you got to remember, when you're married, you still have your individual credit report. Your credit report is based on your social. So anything tied to your social will be on your credit report. So if you notice, sometimes husband and wife, they'll have different items on their credit report, but they all have the same access to everything. Well, if the car is only in the husband's name, it should not be on her credit report, first of all. But let's say the car is in both of their names. Well, in the divorce proceedings, the car was given to him. And so, but the loan is still there. Getting a divorce does not separate the finances unless it's spelled out in the divorce. And so a lot of times when people are going through divorces, if they have the chance to come through my office, I always tell them, make sure that you get the finances properly divided up, the financial obligations properly divided up during the divorce. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen or people don't know. And so when they get their credit report, they see that they are still tied to a loan with their spouse. Well, those are some of the things that's the second thing. You get the credit report, you look at it, make sure that everything that's on there belongs to her. All right. And so from there, start looking at what items she could implement to build credit. Let's say she has a credit card in her name. She would start with her credit card. If she does not have a credit card, she may want to consider getting a secured credit card. A secured credit card is one of the easier things that you could do depending on her finances. I don't know if she's ready to get a house or a car and all those other things to add to her credit profile, but she could take $500, go down to her local bank or credit union. Most of them offer secured credit cards. If not, we even can help with that as well. But you want to go down, give them the $500, let them give her a credit card. She can start there and start using credit to build. So there are other things that she can do, but I would say the first step would be to get the credit report. Second step, to review it and make sure it's cleaned up, make sure everything is correct, especially if she has a new address. All those things need to be corrected on her credit report. And the third thing is, if she does not have a credit card, She wants to get a secured credit card. If she does have a credit card, she want to make sure she's using that with the same tips that I just gave you all a few minutes ago. Excellent question. Excellent question. So what I'm going to do, I want to go ahead and wrap up the class. And like I said, I wanted to give everybody something for staying to the end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you guys for tuning in, whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay. You want to go to our website, martinbusinesssolution.com, and there you will find where it says schedule an appointment. You can actually schedule a no-cost financial planning session with us. Now, the initial session will just kind of see where you are and see where you want to be and give you some tips and tools on how to get there. So reach out to us if you have another question or something you would like to know. Give us an email. All of our contact information is current on our website. And so we look forward to hearing from you all soon and very soon. Once again, remember your personal credit is yours. It's your responsibility. So you got to face the music, face the facts. Let's deal with it and never, ever, ever feel ashamed. It's never too late for a brand new start. You guys have a great rest of your day.